see it's, you tagged me. I can see that. Okay, now I see it live.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, there you go. Cool.
We are in. We are here. Good morning, my friend.
Good morning.
We are streaming live. Really quickly, my name is Tom, the People Conductor Black. I like bringing people together for mutual benefit. I've had the pleasure of knowing you, Jeff, now for a few years. Obviously, we met through Facebook, and we've met in person and been talking for a number of years. We've actually done some virtual real estate deals together, and I've watched you grow this Free Houses Sub-2 group, and that's kind of your niche now, or niche, depending on you say tomato, I say tomato. So Jeff, without further ado, tell me about Jeff Richman, and let's get the ball rolling. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks, Tom, for the introduction. My name is Jeffrey Richman. For those of you who don't know, I do run a group on Facebook called Free Houses Sub-2. So if you go to groups, or you go to the search bar and you type in Free Houses Sub-2, you'll be able to pull it up, ask to join. I personally look at every single one and accept or decline. Okay, just so you know. You know, I don't have some VA from the Philippines doing this. It's actually me. I've been involved in real estate since about 1994. When I first heard about Subject 2, it just spoke to me. I'm a numbers guy. I ran the numbers, and I think they're amazing. You can take a property with no equity. That's $100,000 house, person owns 100, and you can still make $50,000, $60,000 on it. And throughout this interview with Tom, we'll probably go into that a little bit. I am active. This is not something I've done, 10 years ago. I just did 3 deals last week, doing a deal this week, doing another deal next week. So I'm still active. I do this all the time. And actually, I'm working on coming out with my own course. Hopefully, we'll be out at the beginning of the year for different things that you don't necessarily always see on this.
So what you're saying is you're gonna bring more to it than the average person might learn elsewhere.
I'm hoping.
Right.
If anything, I mean, it's not going to be state specific. It'll be more general. Anybody that has a course has to do something general, but certainly take the forms and everything one time to your attorney and say it's okay. I can tell you, I do multiple states. I work in, 15 states right now, and I've done deals in all of them. Most of them are Sub-2, and they're fine. The documents work out really well.
Nice. Okay.
I just want to make sure you do it the right way.
Right. And when we talk about that, one of the things I was interested in learning, tell me about an ideal scenario or a typical scenario. I'm a homeowner. I just want out. I'm open to pretty much anything that's creative. We've built rapport. I trust what you tell me. Why would a home seller do a Subject 2, or can you also define what that is?
Sure. And let's do it. Let's dispel a couple of things.
Sure.
A lot of people, Tom, feel that, well, if somebody's going to do a Subject 2 deal, okay, by allowing them to take over the mortgage, and we'll explain that more in depth in a little bit, but they feel the person has to be behind in payments or facing pre-foreclosure or foreclosure. And that's not true. 98% of all the deals I've done over the last 20 something years, people are current on their payments. Now we ask the question, why? Why would they do such a thing? Because that's what you're asking me. Well, there are a myriad of reasons. It could be that, they just got transferred. If somebody's transferred from here, I'm located in North Carolina. They just got transferred tomorrow to Iowa, or they have to go there in 2 weeks. They don't really have enough time to put it on the market and list the property. Okay. They want to go out there. So we give them a quick out because we can purchase a home sub to in 3 to 7 days. It could be maybe they lost their job. They can't afford to keep their home. They're being proactive. Maybe they're about to get a divorce. Okay. Maybe they're married with kids. The spouse is moving out there, but the other spouse has to stay with the children to move the house. Well, that puts a lot of stress on the family.
Wow, that's tough. Yeah.
And those are many of the reasons.
Okay. And to that point, if I own a property and I decide I want to go in that direction, take me through some of the steps of the process. So I want to get with my family. I'm willing to do a subject to with you. Do I sign over the deed? Do you take title to the property? How does that work?
Yes. Let's go back to your earlier question first, which is what is subject to? So if you look at your loan, okay, on your HUD-1 settlement statement, it's usually a 3-page document. On your first page, little bit about halfway down, line 203, move your finger over to line 503. It says it's pre-printed on the form, taking loan subject to. Most people don't know what that is, but last time I checked, it's a government form. It's a HUD-1 settlement form. HUD stands for Housing and Urban Development. That's a governmental agency. So I look at it as if it's okay for the government, it's okay for me. Okay. That's how we look at it. But what is a subject to? Subject to is basically just taking over somebody's loan subject to the current conditions of the loan. It's what is that loan? If that loan is escrowed at 4.5%, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, and the total payment is say $1,500, then you're taking over the loan based on those conditions of the loan. Now, to answer your other question, we own the home, they own the loan. And that means if it was you, Tom, and I took over your loan, the loan remains in your name. However, the ownership does not. Okay. And the reason that occurs is it protects you and it protects me. Think about it. If you're in the Walmart parking lot, you back up and you hit a little old lady, whether she's hurt or not, what is the first thing she's going to do?
Possibly sue me.
Exactly. Well,
after she swings her purse at me a couple times.
Right. If she's able to. And
right. Or her kid.
But think about this. If she sues you, does that not encumber your current house?
Yes.
So if you were to sell your current home that you live in, you had a lawsuit against it, in some cases, in many instances, you can't sell. But suppose she gets a judgment against you. That attaches to the house because you own it. It's in your name. Well, you're going to have to pay that before you sell it. So me transferring the title, so I own it in one of my entities, protects you, but it also may protect me. See, if I have 20 houses and each one is held differently, and they're going to sue the owner of the house if it happens, well, it would just attach to that house. It won't affect my other 19. Only that one. Okay. Right. So I can still carry on with what I'm doing.
Got it.
And how do you think I know this?
You've been through it before.
You think?
Yeah. Maybe more than once.
Maybe more than once.
Okay. And so give me an example scenario. Pick someone out of the last three deals that you did and one that was maybe messy, one that was smooth. And obviously you're going to protect the not so innocent, and we're not going to be talking about names and addresses.
Right.
But can you take me through a scenario of how you got the lead, how the conversation went, and how the transfer went down? And this is a completed transaction where you're in, it's ongoing right now. Can you give me an
Sure.
example?
Sure. I can give you a couple.
Yeah.
A lot of my deals, because I've been doing this a long time, come from word of mouth. The majority of mine come from word of mouth, or I have friends that have a lot of websites and say, hey, I've got this lead here. I only deal in Baltimore County. This one is, in Idaho. Can you work it? So just to let you know, I don't care in the country where the deal is. It matters not to me. It's all a numbers game. So if the numbers make sense, I will do the deal.
Right.
So they come to me through websites, word of mouth, referrals that I do. I just got a call yesterday on a referral on one. So that happens all the time. So that's where a lot of my leads come from. I do have people that make outbound calls for me. Okay.
Okay.
They call Craigslist ads, they call Zillow ads, they call expired listings. So we try to, I don't do any direct mail marketing for myself.
Right.
I do not.
Yeah.
There are a lot of
Right.
people that like it, but I don't do it because I don't need to. I have more leads actually than I can handle right now. So taking you through a couple scenarios, a few of them come to mind. Okay. I've got one that this guy happened to be behind. It was his childhood home. I just did this last week in Illinois. Actually, I'm negotiating with the attorneys right now for the amount of bringing it current. So he moved 400 miles away. It was his childhood home. His parents had died. I took over this property and I've already sold owner finance it and sold it. So not only am I going to make up his back payments, which were only a couple, but the person moving into home owner finance it from me and gave me a little over $11,000 to do it.
Right.
Another deal that I did, and this is going to be hard for a lot of people listening. I took over another property from somebody, didn't have much equity. This was a smaller house. It was worth about 42.5. I think he owed 37. So working the numbers, I had him pay me to take the house. So he paid me over $8,000 to take his house. This just happened last week.
Okay.
So these are very current deals. I did another deal last week. Literally, there was no equity. The guy owed 77.5. It was worth 80. Now he was an older gentleman. He wanted to move a couple states away. He vacated the house. I said, look, the only way we can make this happen, because he didn't have $8,000 or $10,000 to give me. Okay. So
Sure.
I had him pay the next 3 payments that were due.
Okay.
So he's paying through December. Meanwhile, I will probably get that property occupied in the next under 30 days. So I get 2 additional months of profit aside from the upfront money from the person moving in.
Okay. Okay. And so you had mentioned that you take title to the property in this process, and then through all the documentation, you accept legal and financial responsibility for their mortgage, and that's what helps them sleep at night. Is that right?
Well, I want them to be able to sleep at night. And I actually use those words. I say, look, if dealing with me, you're going to have an issue doing this sleeping at night, then don't do it. I just tell people, don't do
Wow.
business with me.
Nice.
I'm very upfront about it, but I don't assume the loan. I don't take over. Well, I take over financial responsibility by telling them I'm going to make the payment.
Sure.
However, technically, if it was your property, Tom, technically, because the loan is in your name, you're still responsible.
Right. I
However,
understand.
I'd let people know it's not going to come to that
Right.
because I'm going to make the underlying payment.
Sure. Sure. Now to that point, one of the things that we were talking about you taking title to the property, so the property will be in your entity's name. Do you put it in LLC? Do you typically put it in a trust? And how does that affect the contract or the arrangement with the mortgage? I've heard about something called a due on sale clause. Can you explain, how you take title and how you work through that potential challenge?
Sure. So there's two questions there. First is how do I take title? Second is about the due on sale. So we'll go one at a time.
Sure.
So how I take title is every property is in a separate land trust. A lot of people learn LLCs are good, and there's nothing wrong with that. But think about this. Each LLC that you start, you have to pay for. Okay. And then every year, you've got to pay an ongoing fee.
Sure.
Well, we'll say 20 houses, okay, which for some people seems a lot. For other people, it's not a lot. Okay. So if I have 20 houses and I have 20 LLCs, first of all, it's an accounting nightmare. Okay. That's the first thing. Second of
Mhm.
all, it costs a crap load of money. You got to set them up. Okay. Even if you go to a place like Colorado or Wyoming or someplace else, and like say Wyoming, it only costs you, I think, $125 to set it up. But there's still an ongoing fee every year for each LLC. So what I
Right.
do is I set up one LLC and I put about 10, 12 properties into that LLC by via a land trust. So I set up the land trust. So if you think about it, the land trust owns the house, not you. You
Right.
never own anything. So the land trust owns the house, and you could have the beneficial interest of the land trust, the ownership of the land trust being your LLC, thus keeping your name away from public record. And somebody
Right.
you trust could be your trustee. Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's how I take title. But going on to the due on sale clause, understand there is no due on sale jail. Okay. Every mortgage since 1978 is actually non assumable. Now, a lot of you argue with me. Yes, you can assume it now with qualifying.
Right.
Well, with qualifying, you might as well just go get a new loan. Your
Right.
name is going to be everywhere. The
Right.
whole key of subject to is to take over somebody's loan so you don't have to put your credit at risk and go through all those hoops and paperwork, which is a pain,
Right.
and do all that. So you can pay a little bit more for a house by taking it sub two. But
Sure.
going back to the due on sale clause, so every single mortgage since 1978 has a due on sale clause. It says they may, at their option, call the loan due. Keyword being may. Doesn't say
Right.
they will, doesn't say they have to, doesn't say they must. It says they may at their option.
Mhm.
Well, think about it. If you're a bank, you have a performing asset, meaning I make money on you business. Okay, not the real estate business. They
Right.
want to keep that loan happening. So if you're sending them on your 4.5% loan every month of payment, the bank doesn't care who makes a payment as long as they get a payment. Okay.
Right.
As long
Yeah.
as they get it, they're not going to call it due unless rates miraculously go up to 18%. Then then they'll look closely at a loan. But
Okay.
I've done hundreds of these. And with the people I know, a total of thousands of these. And no one has ever had a loan call due. that I know.
Okay. Okay. Now I've heard of other people in the past, and this is why I was asking how you take title. Um, Based on what you just said, it probably doesn't matter. But some of the guru types, teacher types, have been. So let's say it was owned by Bill Smith. They've talked about, well, it would make it less messy to take title in Smith Family Trust, even though that's not their trust, it's someone else's. Does that matter at all? Do you have to have the trust even affiliated with the previous owner's name at all?
Um, Naming it the Smith Family Trust, if it's John Smith that owned the property, but he no longer owns the property and you're taking it over, can create an issue, at least
Okay.
in my eyes. Now, understand, this is just my opinion. There are a
Right.
lot of them out there. Everybody's got opinions like everybody's got a rear end.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We know
Um,
that one.
for me, I don't like doing it because the judge, if it ever comes to that and you go to court, could rule against you and go, well, the trust is named after the family that
Right.
owned the property. It's still theirs. And they can negate the whole thing. I mean, there's a number of things that could happen.
Right. Right.
So
Okay.
a lot of times the way that I do it is you could use a numerical strategy. You can use the address of the property. You can name it the Judeo-Christian Trust, something that is totally different. You can name
Right.
it the Orphan Annie Trust. Who wants to go against orphans? Okay,
Right. Right.
so there are a number of things that you could do to protect yourself. Just
Okay.
keep a list of what your names are on the trust associated with which property, so you know what's going on.
Okay. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I understand. And again, a lot of people have different information, different styles, different strategies that they do, but that makes more sense. It sounds like it limits your liability by doing it the way you just mentioned. The other thing is, with the transactions that you have done, what's a typical timeline where their underlying mortgage stays on the record? Could that be for 2 years, 5 years, the rest of the loan term,
All of the
or
above.
all of the above? Okay. And so that being said, for you personally, your goal, your exit strategy is to put in a tenant buyer. Is that right? Or are there different strategies you use?
There's two main strategies.
Okay.
The strategies that I use to get rid of property are rent to own or
Okay.
lease option. It's just a price point
Sure.
is the only difference. So we'll just say rent to own, or I do owner financing, like
Okay.
contract for deed, agreement for deed, depending on the state you're in.
Okay.
In Texas, it's called all-inclusive trust deed. So the
Okay.
only difference is what's named at the top of that. The body is all the same.
Okay.
The owner financing. I like owner financing because you can get more money from a lot of people to owner finance, and you're able to stretch it out upwards of 40 years. So think about it, 30, 40 years of payments and making a profit and not having to do anything is
Okay.
fantastic.
Now that brings up a really good point that I've been thinking about. So let's say you find a great subject to opportunity. You offer owner financing to an individual. Do you still keep it in title in your name, or do you transfer title after they put up down payment or whatever you want to call it? Does it
Well,
trans?
okay. So I'm a bit confused by the question.
Let me
Are
say it
we
a different way.
talking
When you do
when
owner
I have the
financing,
property? Oh,
I
okay.
come to the table and I want to buy it.
Right.
Do I take title?
No. The
Okay.
way that I owner finance a property, contract for deed or agreement for deed, we'll just use those as owner financing. Um, It's very similar to a car title.
Okay.
So when you go and buy a car, you make payments on the car. You don't get title to the car until
Understood.
you make the last payment.
Right.
Well, contract for deed or agreement for deed are the exact same things. People
Okay.
overcomplicate stuff.
Okay.
You just need to simplify it. So an
Right.
agreement for deed is basically the same thing as a car title.
Okay.
Make payments. When you're done making payments, I'll give you the deed. Now, that could be they keep making payments to me, or X amount of years later, they decide they can get a much better rate from the bank, which they can. Okay. I'm not here to be, I like being the bank, but I'm not giving bank rates. They could go to the bank and pay it off, or they can make payments to me. When I'm paid off, the deed conveys.
Okay. And then the underlying mortgage is paid off, and hopefully you keep the difference in
Correct.
in that case. And then the other thing, another question I had for you is, do you have if you keep doing more and more of these deals, it's got to be a little cumbersome to keep track of. Do you have a servicer when you put these deals, whether it's a lease option, lease purchase, or contract for deed, do you have a third party that facilitates all the payments, or do you handle all that directly yourself throughout the process?
Well, for me directly, when I do an owner finance deal, I like to keep things very simple. So I don't like doing a lot of paperwork. And
Sure.
with real estate, there's a lot of paperwork.
True.
It's unfortunate. It just happens to be one of those things I don't like. So what I wind up doing on owner finance is I have another company handle collecting the money because they do all the tax paperwork for me, which
Mhm.
I don't want to do, nor do I know how to do, nor do I care to know how to do.
Okay.
Um, on my rent to own, I set it all up on a third party servicer that it's a different company. It goes to them, then they ACH it to me. Both of them ACH it to me. And
Understood.
what
Okay.
I've set, what I've set on mortgages, the underlying mortgages on all these properties that I've taken sub to, I set up automatic payments through my account.
Okay.
So,
So you,
so
so
they pull the money directly out of my account, but I usually set it up for around the 14th.
okay.
To,
And let me think about this for a second too, because I have to believe that this may be a strategy you use, maybe not. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, the mortgage is 800, the contract for deed, they're paying $1,000 a month, as an example. Okay, with that overage, with that profit, or with that net cash flow, do you make additional payments? Do you like make 13 payments a year on the underlying mortgage, or you just stick to the regular terms to build up? Which do you do? Because I'm thinking the only reason I mention it is might be a way to build up equity throughout the process, or you just keep it static.
and that's a great question. So I would say I do both. There's a property I just did 2 weeks ago somewhere in South Carolina. Uh, I'm JVing that one with somebody. It stands for joint venture, and I think we're getting like $320 a month off that property.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my half and her half, that's $160 each. We're not getting rich off $160. I mean, it
No.
helps. It's great. So the underlying mortgage on that house, I think, is a little bit over $750 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about what we're going to do on that one is we're going to make extra payments every every month. We're just going to put that additional money on towards principal. So at the end of the year, we're going to buy down essentially 5 payments.
Right.
And that's going to help our equity position because it saves us so much interest. So
Okay.
on some of them we do, others, I mean, I have a lot of systems. I have people that work for me, I have to pay. So I want most of that incoming money. But where it doesn't really matter, or it's going to make a big difference, I go ahead and just make the extra payments, as long as the
Okay.
people I'm joint venturing with agree.
Gotcha. Well, just want to mention, Jordan had posted a couple of questions here in the in your Facebook group. Why not do a wrap? Don't want to go through foreclosure process, especially in a mortgage state. So as you mentioned, you're not going to go through a foreclosure when you're doing contract for deed because they don't have the title.
Well, I would
So
say it depends on the state. Okay.
okay.
Judges don't always do what the law says. And how do you think I know that?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's an
Um,
understatement, probably.
Sometimes they make their own law. Then you have to decide, well, do I want to fight them because I'm right, or just let it go and take my lumps? I
Hmm.
can't answer that for you. But,
Right.
if you do a wrap, you have to foreclose the person. Okay. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming you're asking about doing a wrap when you're selling the property. So it's similar to a wrap, but on a contract for deed, it's typically easier to get the person out. Um, you do the wrap, basically it's in their name because you're wrapping that mortgage. You're doing something with them, and the burden of proof is going to be, excuse me, is going to be on you. Uh,
Right.
I don't want that happening, so I don't do wraps of any sort, buying or
Okay.
selling. But that's
Okay.
me. I
And
have some friends that the only way they'll buy is on a wrap.
hmm.
But depending on your state, I mean, if you're in Texas or Georgia, in under 60 days, you could be kissing the curb on a foreclosure. But if
Okay.
you're in North Carolina, where I'm at, or Florida, or I think even Maryland is like this, you're looking at 6 to 9 months. And if somebody
Oh
knows
yeah.
how to play the game, could be up to
Yeah.
2 years. Well,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but you're not going to live off of me for that long. Okay. I've
Right.
had people try. So to get people out, it's actually cheaper to pay them to leave. And I've
Yeah.
done that before.
Okay. And along those lines too, had a great question. I think it slipped my mind, but it's going to come back to me in about 10 seconds. Um, when you have, whether you do contract for deed or you do a lease option or a lease purchase, rent to own, um, do you typically see a larger upfront payment when you do contract for deed, or have you seen um, lease options and contract for deed, initial payments, they're about the same? I mean, I think you kind of alluded to earlier that people who do contract for deed on owner financing typically will put up a little more money up front.
Oh, yeah. Well, they'll actually put up a lot more, almost double, if not more. Uh,
Wow.
the
Okay.
way that I work it on my rent to owns, it's usually 3 to 5% of the purchase price.
Okay.
Contract for deed, I make people give me 10%. And
Okay.
I don't negotiate that at all.
Okay.
Um, if I'm going to give somebody, quote unquote, ownership of the property, they can take care of the tax advantages and benefits and things like that, then you're going to have some serious skin in the game. Now,
Okay.
I have a number of my properties where I've sold on rent to own because they didn't have enough for contract for deed, but I have them pay me more than I'm asking for every month because I apply that to the purchase price. I don't give rent credits because in this state, if you give rent credits, it's called equitable interest.
I
Equitable
understand.
interest is an ownership right, perceived ownership right.
Right.
And judges perceive they have ownership rights. So I don't give rent credits anywhere in the country. I just take off of the purchase price.
Okay.
That increases my cash flow, but hopefully the person buys a house and I can roll them right into a contract for deed when they hit 10%.
Okay. All right. So they're paying a little extra each month. That actually comes off the purchase price. And then once they get to that 10% level, you just You just rework their paperwork,
I
basically?
do. I do.
Okay.
But also think it's, you know, for those of us that have kids, I liken real estate to having children, meaning
Mhm.
everything is negotiable. Everything.
Right.
Okay. So